Hang in there, it is! Smylie Kaufman for 61. Wow.
I'm Smylie Kaufman, and this is The Smylie Show.
What's up, guys? Back for another episode of The Smylie Show, and today we are joined by Rick Gehman, who is the creator and owner of the golf database rickrungood.com. He is also the host of the CBS First Cut Golf podcast, and he's joining us today to guide you through the world of sports and specifically golf betting. So without further ado, let's get to Rick. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of The Smylie Show. You just heard it all. We got Rick Gehman joining here today on the podcast. Rick, thanks for joining, buddy. You got one heck of a podcast setup. I got to give you props here. You got the gnomes behind you. I see a Masters gnome, looks like, and then a little mini claret jug. Is that what we got back there?
That's right, mini claret jug. Couple of Masters gnomes, depending on how wide you can get. Eventually, you'll find bobbleheads, Smylie. Yeah, there's kind of like a lot of stuff going on back there, but. This is the content hub. All credit to my wife. She set up the camera. She set up the microphone.
Is this in the house?
Yeah, I'm at home, the home studio right now.
Dude, that's a great home studio. Big props. It's not easy to quite do what we do at our homes, but it seems like you got a pretty dang good setup. So, Rick, if you can, give us as much background about yourself on how you got into golf. It appears to me that you had a baseball background. So to get into the golf world, it's not every day you see people make the jump from one sport to the other.
For sure. And my background is I went to college to play baseball, and that was kind of my main focus over academics for sure. But I think I've always loved golf. I played golf in high school, and my background professionally was in big data. And after I graduated college, I just, hang up the cleats, grab the golf clubs, just become obsessed with golf again, as many of us are. And my data background kind of starts really pumping there. And I look around and say, okay, can I build a golf database? Can I build a sports database? And that was really my intro into the data side of things, right? I mean, I'm not a technical swing guy. I've got a lot of horrible swing thoughts. I've got a lot, I live in the spreadsheet. I wish they played these professional golf tournaments in spreadsheets.
You'd be undefeated.
I'd be undefeated. But yeah, so that's really my very small corner of the golf industry that we're in.
All right. What about baseball? All right. So were you an infielder? What position we play?
Yeah, I mean, I could only play second base because that's about as strong as my arm could be. I couldn't make the throw from anywhere else, but I was like, the absolute, I'd be great now, Smylie, like get on base percentage, walk a lot. I think I led the nation in walks my senior year. Like I did not swing unless there were 2 strikes. I was going to crowd the plate. I was going to get on base any way I could because I had to use everything to my advantage.
Rick's playing Moneyball, and I appreciate that so much. That's exactly the type of player that most pitchers hate to pitch against. Yeah. It's that not going to swing and make you throw strikes. And I was reading just on your bio of what's the college that you went to? I could not pronounce the name of it.
Yeah, I went to Immaculata, which is right outside Philadelphia. You and I were chatting. It was an all girls school forever. I think I was the second class of men that were in there in the first year that they had baseball. So we played 42 road games the first year because the stadium wasn't complete yet.
42 road games. That's insane. You know what impressed me too, though? You talked about a bunch of things you were good at. One of the other things you left out is that your stolen base percentage was pretty dang solid too. And I was going to ask you this. If we lined up right now and you got a little lead up first base and I'm playing catcher, at our age right now, do I have a chance to throw you out at second? Or are you getting down every single time?
I'd have to know your pop times, but I would assume I could get a good enough jump to get there. Yeah, I think I still got it. Would be ugly, but I think I could get the job done.
I don't disagree whatsoever because first off, I have to catch it, and then the next thing is I got to get the mask off, which I don't know if I'm getting the mask off. So I agree. I think you're getting home at second base, but
there's a lot of things that can go wrong. I just got to go from point A to point B.
All right, so Rick, getting into golf, of course, you're connected with CBS. You have your own podcast. When did getting into the golf data where you realize, okay, there's not a whole lot, baseball is such a timeless sport that is always been looked at as having this big data pool of things that scouts either use to evaluate a player, or that league offices uses to make trades for their teams with golf. There's ShotLink data that's been relatively new, or at least it feels new, still like in this technology era. For you making that switch into golf, at what point do people start catching wind of all right, we need to start relying on data, whether it's in betting or using it as a tool to look at these golf courses and these players a little bit in a different light?
Yeah, I think the baseball parallels are really great here, because baseball is such a stat driven sport. 50 home runs is always going to be a benchmark for a long time. You can go back and find, the last time somebody batted over 300, and all that stuff just exists for 100 years. But now there's been an explosion in baseball, right? The money ball obviously started all of that. And there is not a ball that is hit, a pitch that is thrown, that doesn't have exit velocity and launch angle and all of these other metrics that you see. And golf is like about to be there. We're probably 10 years behind baseball in that sense. ShotLink data since 2004, that's most shots hit on the PGA Tour, not every tournament, but most, starting to be everywhere. The European Tour has their own version of that. There are a lot of ways that you can start aggregating every single shot that's hit, Smylie, which is different. I mean, I'll tell you a story. Like, a lot of data providers, they just sit college kids down in front of a TV to watch football games, to watch baseball games, and they just chart shots, chart pitches. Like, this was a ball, it was a foot outside or whatever. And then that becomes the data feed. You can't do that in golf, right? Like, not every shot is shown. No. You have to get the data from the source. You have to get it from the PGA Tour. You have to get it from the ShotLink system to have that level of accuracy that you want. So that right there is a little bit of a barrier that's starting to get knocked down a little bit. And then I also think, the younger class of players, these guys that are coming up out of college who have always hit on launch monitors, who know all their numbers, who are more prepared than ever to win, they're pushing a lot of the technology improvements that we're seeing. And that is, making its way out to guys like me, to people who want to place wagers or find their best one and done pick for the week, to agents, to managers, to caddies. Like, there's just an overall massive optimization of the sport that's happening right now.
What's interesting is that players in golf, I think, have been using technology to their advantage more so than maybe baseball players have, or at least it seems that baseball players are finally catching up a little bit. And I know you can probably attest to this, Rick, at least when I was growing up playing baseball, how it was taught, at least from a batting standpoint, from a technique at least, was that you wanted to hit down on it. That's but right. now that you see is that I think they have found, whether it's TrackMan or launch data, to be able to tell that's like, oh, actually, if you want to hit more home runs, or just the style in which the game has changed in baseball, that it's actually a little bit more flatter, or you can hit up on it and actually be successful. With golf, I felt like players were so beyond where baseball players were in using TrackMan or technology to benefit them in their swings and how they play the game. But it seems like baseball's kind of caught up, because you see pitchers using spin rates to get to certain things. And it's a little bit less of a feel and an old school mentality, to where now it seems that baseball's catching up to golf, but the data side, it seems like they were flip flop, like you were talking about.
Yeah, you're right. So there's a couple of, there's these moments in every sport, right? Like, right, when I was growing up playing baseball, it was, if you hit a ground ball every time, you're going to bat 333, right? Because that's the number of ground balls that end up being base hits. That is like gone, right? Like, nobody bats 300 anymore, because the value of hitting a fly ball, which could eventually become a home run, is so much more valuable. It's when the shift in the NBA went from 2-pointers to 3-pointers. Well, if I can make 40% of my threes, I'm just going to jack threes all over the place. There's more value in that. Well, there's more value in just like ripping driver most of the time, or like doing all these other things. So golfers have done that in their own games. And I mean, this better than anybody. There's like a million ways to get the ball in the hole, and all these guys are doing it their own way. But there are these moments, it's happening in every sport. And now golfers are just kind of getting the data that we were going off of hunches with. Like, now they're starting to back it up with numbers.
Well, what about a player that looks at their ShotLink data, whether it's a weekly occurrence or at the end of the year where they look at all of their data? For you, where do you think players could be the most misled when they go and look at week to week data or data at the end of the year, where you feel like maybe ShotLink is inaccurate in some ways in which it measures certain categories? And I'll have a follow-up question. I just want to hear this, your answer first there, because I want to ask a strategy question after that.
Sure. So a couple of things here. I think one, the player has intent in their mind, right? So if I don't know if you have misread a putt or if you have mishit a putt. Right. I don't know what your line was. So this is why, when I hear Matt Fitzpatrick, who tracks every single one of the shots he's ever hit.
Exactly.
He knows his intent, Smylie. Like, he knows whether he was trying to hit it 30 feet left of the pin or it was an accident that he stuffed it to 2 feet. Right. Like, he knows that. I think from like an actual statistical standpoint, I think proximity is a pretty bad stat. One, because there's intent involved, right? And you can tell me, like, how often is the flag, like the pin, how often is that the target?
That's a great question. And I could tell you, as a tour player, it depends on wind direction, where it is on the green, how far you have away. And there's, a decade golf was something that I used when I was playing professional. My caddy actually used it and kind of would tell me, all right, it's 4 steps right at this pin. So if you hit it right next to the pin, it's like, well, the intent was to hit it here, but I know that I probably pulled it and that's where it ended up. So it can be a little fluky, kind of to your point.
Yeah, and there are a ton of holes on the PGA Tour where hitting it to 30 feet is a great shot. Yeah. And there's some where hitting it to 30 feet is like probably a below average shot. So proximity by itself is pretty wonky. All the variables. I just compare everything to their peers, right? Whether it's on a hole by hole basis, like, were you better than your peers? Were you worse than your peers? By what margin? Where can you get better? All of that stuff. Even if the data is 80% good data, 20% bad data, if you're comparing it against your peers, it starts to make it all pretty good data.
That makes sense. And I guess you actually kind of answered the question a little bit, was asking about strategy, because to me, players all the time will either hit, let's say they hit a driver, hit in the fairway on a hole that they were playing it aggressively. And let's say they ended up taking a line that they didn't expect, ball ends up in the fairway, they make birdie, versus maybe a player that hits iron off the tee and takes not quite as good as wide and ends up in a spot in the rough with a bad angle, makes bogey. And just decision making, I think oftentimes when I see players now, you kind of mentioned it earlier, taking driver more often than not. It's the way the game is changed. You talk about baseball, how maybe the athletes change. Sure, the baseballs kind of get adjusted here and there. The golf ball certainly has changed. Equipment has gotten better. To me, when I look at a website like yours, rickrun.com, and I see, Data Golfer, I see ShotLink, it's incredible to me how a player wouldn't see the best players in the world and just look down the deal and see off of the tee metrics, and you're just like, well, why wouldn't I want to be just hitting it as far as I possibly can? Because the benefits are so good that it's almost worth the risk of failing to adding speed than not trying at all.
Yes, 100%. And I'm so glad you brought this up, because I think the decade stuff and the stuff that I do, it overlaps, but they're two very different things, right? Like, the decade stuff is very much strategy based. I understand my shot dispersions and where my misses are going to go, so I can aim at a spot where 80% of my misses are going to be good misses or something like that, right? I understand that. The way that I do it is like modeling the golf course to say, okay, that's fine, but like, you can assign a value to playing out of the fairway on this hole. You can assign a value to playing out of the rough. So there's probably only like 7 or 8 courses on the PGA Tour schedule where it is worse to play out of the rough like longer than it is to play out of the fairway. So it's why you're seeing these guys like, the best drivers can hit it far. It's because the penalty that you're getting for missing the fairway is not as large. It happens on like 8 courses a year. So I value that, right? I look at all the holes and say, okay, Like if you miss right on this hole, that's a quarter of a shot. Like you've just lost a quarter of a shot. If you hit the bunker on 15 at Riviera, it's like a half a shot, which is why some guys play down 17, right? It's like it's that big of a deal. So I look at it from a value perspective, and then the decade stuff is like your in game. Okay, we're standing on the tee box. I know the variables. I've got the wind. Now we have to make a call in the moment.
Has any player approached you about their statistics and their data and finding maybe some areas in which they can improve just by whether it's using your website or just looking a little deeper into what they might be doing wrong?
Yeah. So a couple of players, couple of some Korn Ferry guys. Again, the younger guys skew towards like loving this stuff. Some managers and some agents so that they can distribute it out to their players. But yeah, I mean, the thing that I think is most interesting is when you look at a golf course, when you look at scheduling, if you have the luxury of being able to schedule, like you should be able to do it. Obviously, right? You want to pick out the best spots for you. But if you don't, like there's going to be 3 or 4 shots at every single golf course where you can pick up a half a shot or a quarter of a shot on the field, and without like I could do it compared to anybody. Like it doesn't take skill. It's just like looking at the math and looking at the numbers. So that stuff starts to add up over the course of a year. And there are some custom reports that I'll put together for guys. Some guys don't want to be in the weeds every week, every day, every round. Just like, hey, give me an idea every month or something like that where I can look at it, see what's trending in the right direction, what's trending in the wrong direction. But I just think level setting expectations, Smylie, right? Like, what does your proximity number really mean? What does this stroke CA number really mean? Like level setting, if you understand what the metrics are, being able to then say how they improve or affect your game is a lot easier.
So what about your model when it comes to new golf courses? So example, last year, I guess this was the Philly Cricket Golf Club. I'm trying to remember what event it was. What Wells Fargo was. Truist.
Yeah.
Truist. Yeah. So when you have a new golf course with, gosh, I can't remember the last event that was played there. It was probably in the 70s or 80s or whenever it was. When you don't have those data points to, kind of plug into what you expect this golf course to play like against the best players in the world, do you then lean towards grass types? Do you lean towards architects? Who's played well on let's say, I think that was the Tillinghast design. Is that kind of the route you typically go when it comes to developing a model week to week?
Yeah. And this happens a lot on major championships. Like you might not see that place
majors
7, and these are the biggest weeks of the year. How can I not have the models for it? So I start with the satellite imagery, Smylie. So I map the course from above, right? So I'll be able to look at width of fairways, and same thing the decade guys would do. It's like, okay, dispersion and start comparing it to golf courses with similar profiles. So if you've got a golf course that is, 40-yard wide fairways and you're expecting 4 inches of Bermuda rough, I can look at other similar golf courses and see how that has impacted things. I can look at green sizes. I can look at small bent grass greens that are running at a 12 or more on the stimp and start putting that profile together, right? I'm going to make assumptions. I'm going to sometimes guess wrong, sometimes guess right, but I'm going to use basically start to build a profile of similar golf courses or comp courses to make some understandings about this new venue. I try to stay away from the architect stuff. It's all in there, but like how is there a Pete Dye thing? I don't know. Maybe there is, maybe there's not, but being able to use the actual, fairway widths and things like that, I think is a little bit more actionable.
Yeah, that's super interesting because the model, I imagine when people are looking at it week to week, they can get caught up sometimes trying to figure out, well, this player's playing good, but I mean, it might be just a terrible fit, just depending on the golf course. But there's one topic that I completely skipped over that I have to ask you about is the Ryder Cup, because I think it's super interesting to me that data has really been a big advocate, or it's just a big asset, I should say, for the captains, especially it seems like the European side has been able to pull all the right strings when it comes to using data for their advantage and putting out appropriate lineups. When we look at maybe the United States team, does it feel like to you that, yes, they use data, but also they use feel, and that when you use both, that sometimes you could be led in a direction like this year that it felt like it was just a hodgepodge of lineups and also maybe not quite adjusting their data model to what the golf course was, how it was playing that week? Because I think the expectation, Rick, was that, it was Bethpage Black. It was supposed to be a little bit wider fairways. They probably adjusted these things in their models, but I don't think there's no way they could have expected that it was going to play that easy. And I think that was a huge deal for how they set up lineups for that United States team.
I'm so happy you brought this up. I've wrote down, you said so many good words there. This is yes. Okay. So I'm obviously biased in this, where I think the data is critically important, but I understand that, for example, Captain Keegan has to go into his team room and say, hey, these are my feelings. These are guys that might want to play together. There is a human element to it. I get that. The way that I think the Europeans do it better is they say, here's the data and here's why you should be so confident in what this pairing is. So they basically use the data and say, we've figured it out, guys. You two are going to play together, and it gets them to buy into it because they know it's been optimized for their scenario, right? It like already removes a lot of the human element. You just have to frame the way that it's presented to the players. The other thing is the Ryder Cup is it needs to be treated like a board game. Okay. There is an optimal way to play Monopoly. There is an optimal way to play all of these games. There is an optimal way to play the Ryder Cup. There are 28 points and it's a zero-sum game. If you get one, that's one I'm not getting. Okay. And we're racing to a specific number. This is not 1,000 holes of stroke play where we're just going to see this is a sprint of all sprints. And even when, one of my biggest problems was it was not the Harris English, Colin Morikawa thing twice. It wasn't Scotty Scheffler and Russell Henley having to flip their own holes that they were teeing off of, which are both Ryder Cup 101 errors. Okay.
It was inexcusable. The Scotty Rory or Scotty Russell odds evens thing. I was out there. I was like, dude, they have a 30-yard advantage every single hole.
Unfathomable that it got to that point. But you said the word adjustments. Like, when you're one session done, you're basically 20% done. Like you have to make adjustments so fast in the Ryder Cup. You can't wait to see how things happen. And it felt like there were not enough adjustments quick enough. And like, if they were playing the 38 points or, 38 points instead of 28, maybe the US wins, because they're roaring back on Sunday, but it's too late. It's just it's just such a sprint. And I'll tell you one other thing. I can't remember the exact, it might've been Saturday where Scotty and Bryson played together.
Yes.
Which is about the worst strategic thing I could have ever seen. When you're down as many points as you are, you need to embrace volatility. Your two best players should never be playing together in that scenario. They need to be spread out to try to win both points. There were like some very bad mistakes that were being made.
I was literally just about to bring that up, because everything that I heard heading into that Ryder Cup from the U.S. side was that they wanted to put their 4 best teams out. And so when the pairings come out for that Friday, I'm like, okay, all right. I'm kind of a little surprised on a couple guys not playing, especially knowing that Ben Griffin's playing as well as anybody. It's going to be ball in hand, so the max fly thing isn't quite a big of an issue, because as soon as you put a tee in the ground, you could put your ball in play. So to me, there was no issue with Ben going out and playing alternate shot. And then JJ Spawn also playing as well as he was, not being out there, was shocking. But to your point, it was Scotty and Bryson going out and playing together. That to me was a panic situation, whether it was Keegan doing it or the stats guys being like, all right, we have got to find a way to get to whether it's 10-6. And like, we have to make sure we win 2 points in this session. So we have to put these two guys together. That is a panic moment. Yes. And I can understand when you're that down that it might make sense to do that. I think most people, if we were putting together lineups, if you weren't into data, be like, oh, well, you got to put the two best players together on the team so you win a point, but that's actually not the correct decision.
Right. That's actually the only time you should do that is if you're up a ton. Right. Yeah. So that would be the European side of things to just, hey, we might give up this other match to ensure we're getting 1 point here, because this 1 point being so close to the tipping point is so much more valuable. So really, the only scenario in which you should put your top two players together is when you have a big lead, not when you're at a big disadvantage. It's horrible.
You know, it's interesting too, that Saturday afternoon where I would have maybe expected Luke to have sat some players for Sunday singles, and he decides to then still put out players that have played the entire week, just potentially having too many players gassed on Sunday. But it was the right decision. Like, you wanted to make sure that the guys that were playing the best were still earning you points, because it's a race to, well, I guess for Europe it was 14, but sitting Rasmus that entire day Saturday was the right move. But I think it's such a tough decision sometimes as captains when you're friends with all these guys, putting friendships over what a player's goals might be or feelings. That, I think that was maybe one of the things that could have hurt Keegan in all this, is that he had too good of relationships with the players, where sometimes as a manager or a captain, you just gotta be like, sorry, dude, like, you're sitting, like it is what it is. And like, that's hard.
It's going to be great when we raise the Ryder Cup. We're all going to feel a lot better about this, and you're going to be part of the team forever. Right. And you check your resume at the door when you get in here, and you're right. It is probably too much to ask for a friend, a literal peer in the moment. I mean, he's got to go. Yeah. He's got to go deal with these people on a regular basis moving forward, right? It should be, I'm fine with it being somebody completely out of even the golf ecosystem. Just give me a leader. I don't care who it is.
All right. So Rick, you're brought in by Team USA to be the head statistician, to be able to help provide data. What's the first thing that you help with the Team USA in developing a strategy that's going to be successful over the next decade?
Yeah, the good news is there's a lot of room for improvement. I'll be able to put my fingerprints on everything, but I think a lot of it is course setup, right? You have the ability to set up the golf course when you're at home to exactly what you're looking for, right? And I think 6 months before this past Ryder Cup, Bethpage Black would have been an awesome spot for the Americans. When you get there and the rough is down and it's just, it's the worst thing you could have ever have seen. So we're going to start with course setup if we have that advantage. If we don't have that advantage, I don't care about what the points rankings list is. There are some scenarios in which taking a guy much farther down the list because of who he might be able to pair with or what his upside is. Like, again, this is a sprint. This is not like, I'm not getting this guy for 16 rounds of major championship golf for a year. I'm getting this guy for 3 days. He might hit half the shots in the matches that he's playing. Like, it is an absolute sprint. So we're looking for upside. And then the pairings. I mean, the pairings were a disaster for Team US. We mentioned that, but I would want to frame it as, here's your optimal pairings. Here's why they're optimal. Here's why you should trust it. And we're going to fix this. We're going to fix this entire thing. We're not going to let, if we get beat, we get beat, but we're not going to hand them 3 or 4 points because we made silly mistakes.
Well, what about the President's Cup? Because it seems like the United States team has an opportunity to play in a team format every single year. Do you think especially with what I think maybe a lot of people perceive the President's Cup as being like, yeah, it's a team event. I enjoy watching it. Does it get me overly hype as a fan? No, but I do think it's cool to make a team anytime as a player to be involved in playing with buddies in a format like that. It's great. But don't you think if the President's Cup and the Ryder Cup from a USA were a little bit more jointed in that maybe they're giving a little bit more of a young shot or a couple players that are down the list a little bit, like you're talking about, to give them some experience, see how they pair with other guys. And I know that's hard for a lot of players because you want to make these teams, you want to be on them, but don't you feel like it's better for the Ryder Cup team if they're trying some different things at the President's Cup? Yeah.
So there almost needs to be someone overseeing
both,
like US team golf, and passing the playbook, passing the institutional knowledge from one event to the other, right? Which is what I feel like the Europeans do very well. They build on this experience. They learn something, they add it to the manual, and they move on. I feel like we did pods and it worked well and we never did it again. And like it feels like we're starting fresh every single time, whether it's the Ryder Cup, President's Cup, Ryder Cup, President's Cup. And there needs to be some type of, I keep calling it a manual. It doesn't have to be a physical book, Smylie. I mean, it'd be cool if it was like leather bound and like really sick and we passed. I think that would be awesome. Yeah. But like we need something like that. And the President's Cup is even kind of cooler because from a data perspective, because you get to throw out the team after they throw out the team. So there's like the draft that happens, which I don't think people realize how good you could get optimal matchups in that 60 seconds that you have. If you are prepared to you can steal so many points at the President's Cup that you can't steal at the Ryder Cup.
Wow, that's a great point. Players have talked about trying to get a Team USA to where the PGA Tour runs this team year after year, so they have some consistency, especially with the people they talk to year to year. Because really, they should be at an advantage to the European teams that they get to get more reps in these formats, and then also get to potentially mix in more players, so that when you get to a Ryder Cup, players are not quite as shell-shocked when they get in it. So I'd be interested to see how that changes over the next couple of years and who ends up with that captaincy over at Adair Manor, because they definitely have a lot of work to do. But getting back to your website, rickrungood.com, make sure you go subscribe to it, especially if you're somebody that plays fantasy, one and done, anything that you need from a betting standpoint in the game of golf, or if you're an analyst like me who just likes looking at data, can't get enough of it. I think it's just an unbelievable website. And one of the interesting aspects that I found, and I think you posted about this, it's where it caught my eye initially on X, was showing different trajectories and shot shapes for players. So when you think about golf and all the different windows that a player can hit, you can hit it low and left, you can hit it low and right, you can high fades, high draws, just middle shots, and seeing the percentages of what a player typically does, week to week, to where you're not guessing. It's like, I would be amazed to look through every single player to see that what shot shape they typically do. Because a lot of times for me, I get on the course, I see a guy I haven't seen, I'm like, all right, what does he play? Is it a draw? Is it a fade? But for you, when you look at all of this data, what's the one thing that stands out from a trajectory and shot shape standpoint?
Yeah, so this is exciting because this is very, very new. This is almost like another layer of the ShotLink data, which it's basically like the radar data, which has all of these points. So we can see where the window that it came from, or the trajectory that it came from, and the path that it took. So yeah, so I put it onto the 9 windows, right? It's your three trajectories, low, middle, high, and then whether it's a straight ball, a fade, or a draw. And for me, one, the right to left shot on the PGA Tour is almost just dead. Like it just doesn't happen. But the other thing is, these guys that have been coming down the stretch of tournaments with a lot of pressure, and maybe they're trying to get over the finish line for the first time, how often they go to their main shot. Chris Gotterup did it at the Scottish. Chris Gotterup hits out of I call it the bottom left window. It's low, left to right. Like 50% of all of his shots come out of that window, which is an insane number. He's got to hit a fairway coming down the stretch at the Renaissance Club. Where does he go? Boom, low and left. JJ Spawn did it over and over and over again as he was coming down the stretch of not only the US Open, but the Players. And then, I guess it was Memphis, the event that he went to the playoff with Rose. When he has to hit a fairway, like you're getting his shot, like that he believes in. And I guess that makes sense, Smylie, right? Like, what do I trust the most? It's why I hit it the most. But when you start to see the data align up with what these guys are doing on the golf course and vice versa, it is pretty exciting. And just to kind of see how they're getting it done, it's so much fun to see the trajectory stuff.
What about it was a cool graphic you put up the other day. It was a percentage of darts thrown. And I thought that was an amazing title to a graphic because not surprising seeing Scottie Scheffler at the top of that list. But outside of the dart category, what are some other tools or different areas that you can find on your website that gives you a little bit more of a sneak peek of, what you talked about proximity earlier with ShotLink, darts that's a huge difference in what proximity really represents, because darts are tap-in birdies, easy birdies. How often are you putting inside of 10 feet? Those are the things that are what really lowers scoring averages is being closer to the hole. Yes, proximity is that in a way, but when you throw in two drivable par fours on any given golf course, that skews data so much, because you could be in that area where they might consider to be chipping, like if it's within, I guess, maybe 30 yards of the green. Shout out to Scott Fawcett for educating us on that. But I find that darts being interesting. Or what are some other interesting categories you think that you can look into? Yeah,
so you're 100%. I love the darts too, because if you say, okay, your proximity is on average 30 feet. Well, is that 3 shots to 2 feet and 15 to 70 feet, or or are they all to 30 feet? Like that's a huge difference, not only in the score but like in the outcome of the golf tournament. And so I love that. The good thing is, so now that we're in the radar era, now that we're in the ShotLink era, everything is on a per shot basis. So like if you said to me, hey, Rick, give me every shot that was hit inside 5 feet from 156 to 166 yards, I'm just like, okay, no problem. Like I'll go pull that. Like that's where we can get to. So really we're in the stat invention phase. Like if there's ever been a stat, Smylie, that you wanted to invent, now is the time to invent that stat because it's all available to you.
Hold on. I got it. Yeah. I got it. You ready for it?
Yeah.
Strokes gained, or maybe, I don't know how you put the headline for this, but shots under pressure, I think would be an interesting one. The ability for somebody under pressure. I don't know how you identify what that is.
Well, let's do it. Is it within X number of shots on the back nine on Sunday? Is it, is it only the final 6 holes? Is it only the final? What if I'm going for my first win, or if I'm going for my 30th win?
It could be definitely, iron shots on the back nine of a Sunday, or putts inside 10 feet on a Sunday. That would be interesting, because there's been plenty of players who I feel don't have the clutch gene to be able to make that putt when it matters the most. And there are players that have it. There's plenty of players like Nick Taylor, for instance, when he's in contention, dude, his strokes gained, dog and under pressure is better than anybody. He has that dog mentality. But then there's other guys where you're like, man, I see the fear, like it's coming out of his eyes right now.
I can see his throat, just like his heart is in his throat. I can see it beating.
And if let's say you're playing the live markets and stuff, that's all useful information. If it's 4 to 6 players have a chance to win a golf tournament going into the final 9, and you see, all right, well, I see these 2 guys. Of course, their data is awesome this week, but then also I can go look at their strokes gained under pressure and see that they've been able to handle that moment all year. Why not on this Sunday? And they're 4 back. It's like, all right, what's right here?
I'll run you something. I'll get you a little strokes gained under pressure. The one that I like is kind of similar to what you're saying. It's called bonus putting. So it's how many putts do you make inside 5 feet? So the ones you basically should make. And then how many do you make from 20 feet and out? I don't care about 6 to 9. Like most people are, especially from, 15 to 20, like those are just like two putt. Most people are just two putting the majority of the time. But are you making all the ones you should make? And then are you getting the bonus putts? And those are the guys that have that really high upside. They might be able to go low in a specific round. They might be like your Nick Taylors because it opens up.
Wyndham Clark is that he's
these
jumping
guys
off of me. He's really good outside of 20 feet and also cleans it up.
Yeah.
Ricky used to be that way too.
Yeah, it's such a
Jordan.
valuable thing. Like if you just two putt everything from 16 feet, like fine, that's fine. You're going to be okay. But if you can make everything within, so you don't give away any inside 5, and then you get a couple of bonus putts to drop, like you're in serious business there.
That was Luke Donald's career.
Yes,
it really was.
It's incredible, and and then like you said, I mean, and these guys are so good. They'll take it. They'll take advantage of the 5s. They'll do what they need to do on the 5s. You get like 2 bonus strokes around. Like that's insane. That's a huge number.
So what about players that let's say you're looking at all the data, and of course, Scotty Scheffler, 5-tool player, unbelievable statistics. Like we're not going to talk about Scotty here, but I'm more so asking about a player that hasn't broken out yet, but that you have just seen on the spreadsheet, whether it's year after year or maybe a newer player that you say that, okay, this guy has an opportunity based on just looking at what he is able to do from a statistical standpoint, could be a top player in the game that hasn't quite broken out yet.
The first name that popped into my brain was Akshay Bhatia. So he has a lot of really good advanced metric things going for him. He
throws darts.
Absolute dartist, right? Complete
like
flusher. Dartist, right? He's a dartist. You look at some of the, you can make these time frames any way you want. Last 36 is usually what I use, last 36 rounds, but you can open it up wider than that. He's usually inside the top 10 of whatever field you want to look at in terms of strokes gained approach. Strokes gained approach goes a long way, but he's young and he's getting better all the time. His putter has improved significantly.
Oh my gosh.
He is the fact that he is so young has already gotten across the finish line a couple of times in his career. The fact that he's continually getting better, and he's not just getting overall better, but he's plugging the biggest holes in his game. It says to me, he's very good. He understands his game. He understands what it takes to improve his own game. And he's got the mental side of things down, and he can hit shots in the moment. So like that was the first name. Like if you give me the next 10 years of Akshay, I'm thrilled with that.
What about a player who maybe maximizes his strengths and is a top whatever player in the world because he's just so good at what he does, and although maybe not quite having the same amount of talent or speed as the top players?
Denny McCarthy, Taylor Montgomery. I mean, they're different levels of player, but they're some of the best putters in the world. Denny's tee to green play is better than Taylor Montgomery's play, but it's hard to really explain how hard it is, Smylie, when you're at a disadvantage on every single tee box, right? When you peg it and you're just like, oh God, like just give me a chance here. And then you can get yourself to the green and you can be as good as Denny McCarthy is. He gets the most out of his game. And we've seen him go through some spurts of, finding something with the full swing, but he's always been this great putter. And he kind of has to be, if you think, you mentioned it earlier, like if you compare the money list, just basically compare it to strokes gained off the tee or driving distance or something like that. They're going to be pretty similar because it's the one spot everybody has to play from the same spot. There are fewer variables, right? Everybody's got a perfect lie, generally the same wind direction. So it's basically just who's better at this shot. And I'm going to get a bigger leg up than you are. So that's why that's built into that. But guys like Denny McCarthy have to do it in a variety of ways. The best in the world at this, it was like 2020, 2021, Webb Simpson was the best in the world at this. Like from fairway, once he stepped onto the fairway, he was the best player in the world. He just needed to find the fairway.
Man, I was seeing a slow-mo swing of Webb Simpson the other day, and then I just randomly went to see how much money he made in his career. I don't know how he did it. Like his technique and all of the things that that was going on in his golf swing. He's rolling his forearms on the way back. He's super cupped. He's steep, and then he's got a lot of throw through the shot. And I'm just like, how did he do that? How did he do this? It's insane. But it just goes to show when you get this guy in the fairway, maybe how aggressively that he can play, or just his trust in making birdies and throwing darts. There's a dog mentality to that with Webb, and just getting the most out of his game, where maybe other guys who are super talented, let's use like Cam Young for an example before his breakout this year. You're like, when is it going to happen? Like, he does everything really well, and at some point it's got to, like, the levee's got to break. It finally did for him. I'm excited for him, but it just goes to show you there's plenty of ways to keep a career on this PGA Tour.
Yes. There's the way that these guys have to do. I mean, there's the fall is fresh on my mind. So these guys like, Rico Hoey and Kevin Yu, who will just knock the cover off the ball and then they get on the putting surface, and it's like, who knows what's going to happen, but like they can still get the job done. Yeah. It is so interesting. Not the Scotty Schefflers of the world, not the Rory McIlroys of the world, but these guys who are able to put together these unreal long careers to be in contention as often as they are. Like, there's a million ways to get it done. You just got to kind of trust it.
Could you see Rico Hoey having a breakout year?
So he's already doing the long putter thing, which I think is good.
To start to anybody, potentially just to getting average if you're really bad.
Get me to a zero. Yeah, get me to a zero. I would think that he is more likely than not to like have like more of a breakout year, right? I think whatever we want to say, he's
whatever that is,
50th in the FedEx, right? Like he'll finish better than that, right? Like, I think that he has the skill set of the modern game, similar to Akshay. I don't need you to tinker. I don't need you to change a putter every single week, but I like that he's willing to do something now and see if it works or not, right? So to get the information about, hey, maybe the broomstick is for me, maybe it's not. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. So the fact that he's doing that, I think has me pretty optimistic. Yeah.
I got a couple players I want to ask you about, just on what their expectations are for 2026. Two players that had breakout years, Ben Griffin and JJ Spawn. First off, would you have seen anything in the data that would have said that a year like this in 2025 was going to happen for either of those players?
Spawn would have been more predictable than Griffin would have been. Spawn, you could see the trajectory of his game starting to round into form. He's a very well-rounded player. He's got that go-to left to right shot. He is a very strong iron play. Like, there's a lot of good stuff there that you could see trending. The Ben Griffin stuff was kind of out of nowhere. And to see how good it got, I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but he was probably like the 7th or 8th, maybe better, best player in the world, right? Maybe he was the 5th best player in the world in 2025. It's just to see, I don't know how he could have gone from basically off the map to that high. So that there, I didn't see that coming. And
did you see anything in just looking at his year? Of course, you could see all the top 10s. You see the wins. I went down and just kind of scrolled through the PGA Tour's ShotLink data and just his numbers in different categories. And there wasn't anything to me that was jumping off the page. I know that his big issue in really leading into the prior year was driving the golf ball, keeping it in play. And maybe it's kind of in that Webb Simpson category. It's like, if you give this guy in the fairway enough times, he's going to be very good from there. But getting him into the fairway was just his biggest hurdle. Have a really good season with the driver. And it just shows that, okay, maybe he's not nearly as good of an iron player as Scotty Scheffler. But I tell you what, Ben Griffin is better than anybody at is belief and confidence. That's something that you can't measure with statistics, that I think he's top 5 in the world when it comes to that. And will that carry him the rest of his career to being a top 10 player? Maybe it will, but the data says that there has to be some form of regression in play, right?
Yes. So I tend to agree with you. When you look at the stats, you're like, he's an above average player. And then you look at the scoring stats and it's like
stupid good.
Yeah. 5th in par 3 scoring, 27th in par 4 scoring, 17th in par 5 scoring, add them all up. It's really, really good. Right. And when he gets in the heat, he doesn't wither. The big concern that I have about Ben Griffin is that he doesn't hit a lot of fairways. And when he misses fairways, he misses big. He's 113th in, there's a stat called distance from edge of fairway, which is like when you miss, how far are you missing by? Misses big when he misses. And
I led that statistic.
yeah, you're familiar with that. And it's not, if you hit a lot of fairways, it's not the end of the world. If you play golf courses where, it's the penalty is not getting gradually worse the farther you go, you can get away with it. I just think that is probably playing with fire a little bit too much. And again, like, we've had to reset the bar. Is he going to be the 5th best player in the world in 2025? Probably not. Is he going to be the 105th? Also probably not. But he's probably going to be, I don't know, 27, 28, something like that. And that would still be a great year.
You got to give him credit too, because I was watching the Colonial the week that he won, and I'm just sitting here getting some work done, and I'm watching him tee off on the 12th hole, and then I see his ball speed pop up, and I was like, "What in the world was that?" I've followed Ben his entire career. He always knew him to be an average to above average length player, and all of a sudden he's hitting like mid 180s ball speed, maybe even higher than that at times. And I'm like, where did that come from? And that is a reason why, if you're not chasing speed as at a player who's maybe just somewhere around that 70th on the FedEx Cup from year after year where they've been, to see what Ben has done this year, I think it had everything to do with that speed jump.
Yeah. So I think the other thing is this. So we talk a lot. I'm absolutely guilty of this. Ball speed relative to carry distance, and okay, now he's got a shorter club in. All that stuff is true, but when you miss the fairway, club speed is also great for extracting your ball from the rough.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, to be so if you are Ben Griffin in terms of club and ball speed, and you're missing more fairways than your peers, but that skill set allows you to extract yourself club speed and ball speed is everywhere. It's not just off the tee. And I think he really gets to hone in on that being almost like a 2-part skill for him. He gets the advantage off the tee, and he gets the advantage when he's inevitably playing out of the rough.
Yeah. All you have to do is make sure you know where the pin is and be on the right side of hey, if I'm going to miss it in the rough, I'm going to miss it on the left side.
And he does miss both ways, Smylie. And I wonder if that is strategic or not. That could just be him spraying it both ways.
100%.
Or it could be him saying, hey, if I'm going to miss here, miss left. If I'm going to miss there, miss right.
I can tell you that most likely that would be strategic. It's adjusting your line, just your target line. Your fairway isn't the middle of the fairway for every hole. Especially for somebody that's a long player that doesn't mind being in the rough for a better angle. It's like, all right, if I hit the fairway, great. But if not, I want to be in the left rough so that I can land it on the front of the screen and still be able to have a birdie putt. One last player I want to ask you about, Rick, and I think this is a player that many people want to see get back in the winner's circle, have a year in which they get back on the President's Cup, coming off an injury in 2024. We saw a little bit of everything in 2025. We saw Jordan Spieth get in contention early in the year in Phoenix. We saw, I think, moments where you're like, okay, yep, that's the type of shot we need to see from Jordan to see that he's back, and doing it maybe at a level that he hasn't done it from a speed perspective, hitting all the types of shots that you need to be a top player in the world. And I want to ask you this, based off what you have seen and maybe what the data is showing you. I think you can make an argument, and I think many people made this argument heading into the Ryder Cup, is that he is driving it longer and straighter than he has in his entire career. But can we round out the rest of his game? Can he shore up the putting inside of 6 feet? Can he get back to making maybe a couple more putts outside of 20 feet and completing 72 holes and maybe not 66 holes?
You just diagnosed him beautifully. Yeah, I was optimistic about Jordan Spieth in 2025. I'm going to remain optimistic in 2026. The injury that he dealt with, so that would have been 2024.
Yeah.
He turned into a really great driver of the golf ball, and maybe that's because he's worried about turf interaction on other shots or whatever it is. He feels more free, but okay, let's hold on to that. And then let's get back to, I revert everybody back to their 100 round baseline. Like, your last 100 rounds, Smylie, is basically who you are. So like get back to your 100 round baseline. It's usually could be a full year for guys who play a lot. It might be 6 or 8 months, but that's like who you are. So take what you learned through that injury off the tee, and then get back to your baseline in some of the other categories, like your approach play. And you're already off to a great start. Yes, we've got We've got those short putts. That's a problem. We got to make a few more bonus putts. We'll figure that out. But there are so many good course setups for Jordan Spieth. He is probably, like, when you talk about, horses for courses, he probably has the most number of courses on the PGA Tour that's set up really, really well for him, or that he's had a lot of success at and a lot of good vibes at. So I think we're close. You mentioned the consistency. We've got to play 72 holes. We've got to put all 4 rounds together, but there's a lot of really good stuff in the advanced metrics that show how high the ceiling is. We just have to clean up the floor, and that is usually easier for a high-end player like Jordan Spieth.
I think that's a good point. Is there any other player that you have on your list as breakout candidates this year?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think the guy that I was most interested in, I declared Frankie Sappin was going to win Rookie of the Year.
Dude, we all liked Frankie coming out. It was like him and Aldridge.
Tough. Yeah, that was tough for me. So I don't know. I'm still very much I think Chris Gotterup is not close to his final form yet. I think that he had an unbelievable year. He won the Scottish. The way that he plays, the speed in which he plays, the shot shapes, the trajectories that he's able to pull off.
Does he remind you of anybody?
I don't know. He's kind of he's almost like Cam. He reminds me of Cam Young a lot. Now that Cam Young is breaking out, they play a different style of shot, but
one slings draws, one
exactly. I was going to call him Bizarro Cam Young.
Yeah.
But like, that's what I think his upside is really, really high. So I'm interested to see, now that he has the win, do some of these guys, some of these guys, they take that deep breath. They go and try to work on something and try to fix something, and maybe the results get worse. I'm really interested to see what his 2026 looks like. All
right. That's interesting. I like that. I mean, even seeing that he had success at a place like Oakmont just goes to show what type of player Chris Gotterup could be. We, of course, saw what he did at the Scottish Open in the week following at the Open Championship.
Yeah, he finished 4th or 5th or something like that.
Yeah. I think second.
I think you're right. It was third. I just looked at third.
Was it third? Was it?
Yeah, we were all around it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Harris made that putt on 16 because they were the group in front of the one I was watching. But yeah, Chris Gotterup, definitely a candidate I could see breaking out this year. But as we head to Hero, that's this coming week. I'm going to be down there. Actually leaving tomorrow. I think I saw that Scotty Scheffler is plus 165 to win. I mean, that's insane. Is there anybody else that you're looking at this week that you think could be potential in the winner's circle?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure Scotty's gonna just boat race these guys. When you model Albany, it is all approach play, right? If you miss greens, there are some tricky spots around the greens. Ask Colin Morikawa about that from a couple of years ago. There's not a lot of way that you can statistically get a huge edge off the tee. It turns into a big second shot golf course. He's the best second shot player in the world. It's not even close. Outside of him, we mentioned Cam Young, but I'll go like a little bit farther down the list. I think Alex Noren is like sneaky live here. He's been playing these, Rosie and Noren, these guys have just been playing on the DP World Tour. They've been putting up good results. Noren's 2 wins this year overseas have us like completely gone overlooked. I mean, those are the types of guys that I think are sneaky options that if it's not Scotty, it's one of those guys who is not somebody that we haven't seen since Memphis, for example.
Oh, one of the cool aspects of your website, again, rickrungood.com, go check it out, subscribe, is that the grass types is something I think is really cool to see. Everybody says, this putter, Phil Mickelson putts great on Poa annua greens, or Scotty Scheffler putts better on bent than he does Bermuda. Whatever your perception might be, you actually have data that says, all right, here's Poa annua, here's bent, here's Bermuda, and this is their results on each from a strokes gained putting perspective.
And it's so fascinating, right? Because then you start getting into the conversation of, well, that's bent and Poa. How much Poa? How much Poa is it, right? Yeah. So you can get these hybrid strands, but you really do see it. I mean, when you get enough rounds in there, you'll see guys, whether it's because they grew up on it or whether they are just more comfortable, they have an easier time reading it. Guys really do And I'm sure you can speak to this. When you get to a place that you putt well at, or a
100%.
surface that you're more familiar with, like, it's a real thing. I'm just quantifying it. Like, I think it's crazy. You guys are crazy. Professional golfers are absolutely out of their minds. But I'm just quantifying it, and it's really kind of cool to see when they get out there.
Yeah, and Bermuda this week, and definitely some players that if you don't like their chipping, I wouldn't take them this week in Albany, because the chipping on those Bermuda grainy lies have turned many of tour players chipping cross-handed after leaving that place. I don't know if it's Patrick. I know Kisner was definitely a guilty party, as he now chips cross-handed. I think he's still chili chunking it from the years that he was playing that event. Dude, it's nasty, and I'm playing on Wednesday, and I'm already thinking about having to chip over a bunker when I'm going to do. And I'm a good pitcher, but I don't practice enough. And I just know that first one could be very chunky. Or
I mean, listen, some of these guys haven't played. I haven't played since September at the Ryder Cup. Haven't been under pressure like that. I get some of these. Some of these guys might be a little rusty too.
Well, it's a good week of golf. We got the Hero World Challenge. You also got the Aussie Open with Rory teeing it up in Melbourne. So good week of golf. Rick, thanks for coming on. This has been a really in-depth, fascinating conversation. I think if you're somebody who's into golf fantasy, one and done, or just you're a nerd like me and likes looking at all the data and the stats, this was the episode for you. And thanks, Rick, for definitely educating us on a lot of truths and maybe some areas that we can continue to look at your website for more analysis and helping us become better at learning more about golf.
Thank you, Smylie. I appreciate you.
All right, Rick, thanks. Before we wrap up today's episode, we want to take a moment to honor Charlie's dad, who recently passed away. I had the privilege of knowing him personally. He was a wonderful man, someone who loved his family, loved the game of golf, and carried himself with a genuine kindness that stayed with you long after any conversation. We're thinking of you, Charlie, and the entire Hulme family during this time. Charlie is ready. We can't wait to have him back on the show to share more about his dad, or as Walker and Kadick would say, Pop Pop. May he rest in peace, and we're keeping the Hulme family in our thoughts and prayers.